Hey, what's up, guys? You might recognize this shirt from the video I posted yesterday. Doing a little 2-in-1 recording because I'm on my way to a lunch meeting. But I figured while I'm on a roll, let's just get the kind of charismaniac stories out of the way, you know? Yesterday, aka earlier today, I talked about this out-of-body experience that I had. That's how I would describe it. And the fruit of it was it just put an increased weight in my heart to know God and to continue seeking Him. And ultimately, it opened my paradigm for just what's even possible. And I remember just thinking, like, what did you do? Like, what just happened? And man, it just put such a wonder and a reverence in me. This next story is something God delivered me. Whoa! Did y'all see that? Looks like I need to lock my truck cover. It must be windy today. Anyways, something God delivered me from, which I would call an over-the-top seriousness, and specifically about religion and religious practice, following God. I was very serious. I kind of alluded to this the other day, how sometimes we're so afraid of getting it wrong. It's like if you do anything wrong, that's the worst thing you could ever do, and just make sure you never do something wrong. And how that's not an honest approach to learning and maturing. But that's where I was at. I was super serious, super serious. And I still am, like, you know, I'm a goofy person, but I also do, like, take life seriously at this point. And always have, you know, I'm a relatively intense person. But it's different now. It's not so serious now. Like, even if I'm doing something seriously, you know, maybe one difference is, like, I would do it because I want to, because that's the way that I like to engage with that thing, not because I think that's just the way it has to be or that everyone has to do that. You know, if I do something that comes across as intense, it's not because I just need to be so intense. You know, it's because that's just the way I'm wired, and it's more fun for me that way. You know, like getting up early in the morning. Some people are like, man, Jeremy, that dude's built different, you know? And I am built different. It's not like I think if you get up at 4, then you're getting ahead, and if you don't, you're falling behind. Why would you ever sleep in? You know, like, cool down, you know? But I used to be not cooled down. And two memories I have that kind of helped me break out of this seriousness. One is a little bit lighthearted. And there's this band called Rend Collective Experiment, which maybe they're just Rend Collective now, but some Irish dudes that sing some kind of folky Christian songs. And I remember watching a YouTube video where they were explaining the vision behind this album that was coming out called Campfire. It's kind of the album that put them on the map. But I happened to know who they were already because they opened for a Christian concert I attended winter break of freshman year. That said, in this video, they said, you know, we were processing, you know, it's Irish. You know, they're talking all Irish in their accent. I talk American, my accent. Anyway, so, like, we were realizing that seriousness is not a fruit of the Spirit, but joy is. Me and my buddy Bryce would just quote that all the time. It was so funny. We were just like, yes. And at that point, I guess I had already seen some work done in my heart because I loved that line, but I really did internalize that and embrace this reality that, you know, an ultra serious approach is maybe not the most approach, maybe not the most fruit of the Spirit approach, maybe not the way that Jesus lived his life. Even the most serious thing Jesus endured, dying on a cross. It says he endured the cross for the joy set before him. It's not just grit your teeth and try harder. It's joy. And even in the garden before that, he's praying, God, take this cup from me. It's not like he's just like so serious. Like, I just need to do this. I just eat nails for breakfast. Don't even smile around me. It's like, man, Lord, help me. Like, he's weak, he's humble, he's joyful. All these things, they kind of fly in the face of ultra seriousness. Theologically, though, and the moment that really burst my bubble, I might have to make this a part 2 video, but I was listening. I was in a room with about 20 people. We're at an equipping. This guy's giving a sermon, and he was just saying things that totally offended me. It kind of breaks into my hyper spiritualism stuff too, but he was sharing testimonies of how he learned that it's not just spiritual things that God likes, that he actually really likes to play video games with God, and that's like one of the main ways that he encounters the Lord. And he feels like the Lord's like, hey, you want to go play some video games? And it just ministers to him. And I was just like offended, honestly. I was like, what? Like, that is not, because I was still getting delivered from my hyper spiritualism, which believed at the time that all video games are a distraction from the devil, and thankfully I don't believe that anymore. But part of it's because this guy, anyways, after his message, he prays for us that basically that we would get healed from religiosity, from a spirit of seriousness, from just thinking everything's all about how just the linear way of approaching following Jesus, and that we would know that he's with us in everything, that he made this whole world, like for us to delight in, and all these things, about, hey, it's okay, you can smile in church, like all the, just kind of going after this super serious conservative approach to God. And anyways, I was like, I'm taking notes, and a lot of things he said in the message I was convicted of. I'm like, man, I need some breakthrough in this area. But then we go into the ministry time, right? And everyone starts dying laughing, like rolling on the ground laughing. We're talking like those type of holy rollers, which I didn't even know what holy rollers meant back then, but I knew that phrase. But I learned what it meant. And people rolling around the floor, doing spiritual things. Like, what in the world? But I was not, okay? I was like, this is weird. What is happening? And I was a little bit like, God, is this from you? Because I don't feel anything right now. Like, I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing. And I'm just like sitting in my chair, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like the odd one out, because God, I'm praying, like I'm down to, like, if you want to do that, like, you can, I'm not gonna try to arm wrestle God, but I don't know what happened to the rest of the people here. And I was really kind of a little bit offended at, like kind of asking, like, is this from God, or is this just like people, kind of putting on a show, is this real? And to me, it felt irreverent. It felt like an inappropriate way to posture yourself before God. And just from my kind of seriousness, like, you can't do that. You can't just laugh on the ground, like, and I got this, two things happened. One, I got this mental image, and this summer where this was taking place, I think was the summer of the World Cup, or maybe the summer after the World Cup, where a common goal celebration was for the person that scored the goal to lay down on the ground, and for then another player to kind of come up 20 yards away from them and start hooking them, like pretending to fish and pulling, and then the person on the ground would just kind of like flop over closer to the teammate that was reeling them in. I don't know what that was from or why, but that was the popular celebration. I had this mental image, like this picture in my mind of God sitting on the throne and then like stepping off and flopping around like a fish. And that was the most offensive thing to me, period. More offensive than what anyone else in the room was doing. Because, hey, they can get it wrong, but at least they are probably well-meaning. But this was like, God. I'm like, God, stop. Like, and again, it's just in my mind, it's just a vision or a daydream, but I was so uncomfortable. I'm like, Jesus, you can't do that. Like, you're Jesus. Like, stop acting that way, act your age. I was told that all the time growing up, act your age. And what it meant was be serious. Maybe act a little bit above your age is maybe what was meant. But I have to find the journal of what I felt like God said, but the gist of it was like, join me. Like I'm not above this, so you shouldn't be above this. I will stoop down to this, so you can stoop down to this. Kind of like King David being undignified in his worship before God. Like, hey, that wasn't King David being rebellious or irreverent. That actually was holy and pure. And Jesus was trying to show me that through his, self-humiliation in my daydream, Another thing that happened, and so anyways, I ended up finding that to be funny, and it kind of unlocked something in my heart of just letting my guard down, allowing myself to laugh, and that ended up opening up a whole can of worms of just suppressed childlikeness and laughter and eruption of joy that I had never let out before, because I was always trying to be respectful or something, of the people around me or whatever. So, man, it unlocked something in my heart. And another thing that happened that was kind of cool is, and blew my mind at the time, this guy, so anyways, this goes on for like 30 minutes. At the end of that, some people are going up on the mic and sharing what just happened, like what was God doing, what was he speaking? And this guy comes up, he's from Brazil, and he's like, several things. He's like, one, I don't know how I even got invited to this camp or accepted, because literally, guys, I was not a Christian. He basically was like, I just got saved, I'm pretty sure right now. And in Brazil, I just do drugs and don't think about God. But I think I just wanted to come to America, so that's why I applied for this camp, and I didn't even really realize it was a Christian camp. And somehow I got accepted, and he ends up giving his life to the Lord, which is awesome. And then he also shares that what he had just experienced in that 30 minutes where everyone was laughing, I don't remember the exact word he used, because I'm not familiar with drug culture. I need to learn, not by firsthand experience, but by asking people so that I can have more understanding and compassion. But literally, he's like, it just felt like through the Spirit that I just had like it was like the biggest bong rip I have ever done, I think is what he said. It's like the most, he's like, that is a higher, that was like the most intense high, like the same type of high he would feel doing weed or whatever he was doing. It's like he had the biggest dose ever that was higher than could be accessed through drugs. And it was just supernatural from the Holy Spirit. Anyways, do with that what you will. I'm late for lunch. But I was like, whoa, what? And then I learned that some people, maybe it started in the 60s and 70s in the Jesus Revolution when hippies were getting saved. But some people started calling God the Most High God for such a reason as this. That the high, the literal actual experience of getting high that you can experience in the presence of God is higher than even through drugs. So, hey, have you experienced that? We'd love to hear about that. But I'm telling you, this guy was very familiar with some high highs, and apparently he got higher just sitting in his chair talking to the Lord. And he got saved. So that's good fruit, right? I haven't talked to this guy since that camp, so I can't testify about the long-term fruit, but that was just another chink, another like coming at that hyper seriousness. Like, if God can do that, then I think he's different than I thought he was. And it helped me to lighten up a little bit. And to ultimately, it brought things out of me that were good and pure that I had been suppressing, thinking that God didn't like those sides of me. But actually, he loves to be silly. He loves to smile. Like, nothing that we experience on earth surprises him, you know, like laugh, like jokes, you know, anyways, it kind of bleeds into the hyper spiritualism stuff too. But hey, we're just knocking them out, okay? You want to hear some more kind of weird Holy Spirit-y things that I've experienced after growing up Mr. Ultra Conservative? We got some more coming, but that's the one for today. Man, God delivered me from a spirit of religiosity, from hyper seriousness, and I'm much better for it and much more obedient for it. It hasn't taken away from the effectiveness and the gravity by which I have walked in my responsibility as a follower of Jesus. It has only made me more able to suffer even more and endure even more with him instead of doing it for him. That's all I got for y'all today. I'll talk to y'all soon. Life is worship and God is love.